In today's video, I attempt to complete Grounded using only tier 1 gear and tools. In order to complete this challenge, I need to collect all the BURG.L chips and kill the Broodmother. I can only use tier 1 items from the gear and tool tabs of the crafting menu. There are two exceptions to this where I have to use the insect hammer to collect the hot charcoal and the bone dagger to collect the key for the BURG.L chip. Will I be able to complete the challenge? If you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe as it's free and it stops you from missing any future videos. Also, follow me on Twitch if you want to see these challenges completed live. Just like last time, we are playing on mild difficulty, as I always want to be able to complete these challenges in around 5 hours. I start off by grabbing a bunch of items from the floor, including mushrooms for food. I then go and scan a pebblet, plant fiber and sap, so I can craft tools and a crafting table. My goal here was to get as geared up as quickly as possible, since we can only use tier 1 tools. I then decided to proceed with the main quest by chopping the grass blocking the laser, and then going and killing all of the lawn mites. Next, I activated the mysterious machine, not to be confused with the mystery machine from Scooby-Doo. And now I had BURG.L unlocked. Since BURG.L was unlocked, I decided to pay him a visit. I completed the puzzle, killed Taze T, saved BURG.L, and then collected our first BURG.L chip. Although this BURG.L chip is right next to him, so does it really count? Next, I decided to set up a crafting table in a similar place to in the tier 2 only video for the same reasons. It's close to BURG.L and has a lot of unique resources nearby. While setting up, I saw a larva attacking a weevil, and as we all know, weevil lives matter, so I decided to kill the larva, thus protecting the weevil. Realistically though, I just wanted the lava spike because I wanted to craft the lava blade. But don't tell the weevil that. Then I completed my tool collection by crafting the pebblet hammer, acorn shovel and spiky sprig, although ironically I don't think I ever used the spiky sprig. Finally, before leaving the great oak tree, I decided to pick up a lot of acorn shells and crafted some acorn armor, as it is probably the best set of tier 1 armor in the game. Next the footage is fake, ignore the footage. I got the weevil shield, okay? I needed a shield and it's the only tier 1 shield in the game, okay? I'm still a member of Weevil Lives Matter. Forgive me, please. I then made the most important weapon for this challenge, which is the lava blade. This would be our primary weapon, as most enemies are weak to slashing damage, which is what the lava blade inflicts. On my way to the Haze Lab, I stopped at the lake to grab the coup de grace mutation. This gives you a 10% chance of critting when you attack, and it's one of the best mutations to get in the game. I could only get stage 1 since I'm only using tier 1 tools, so I'm unable to move the dice that's in the maze later in the game. Finally, before heading into the hedge, I decided to kill some bombardiers because, as always, we needed 5 bombardier glands to complete everything, and they are a rare drop, so we kill them on sight. I almost died here, but I managed to cling on for dear life and kill both and got 2 boiling glands. I decided to employ the web sack strategy to get parts that I would need later in the game for crafting things such as the gastro goo. From this, we needed to get gas sacks and stink bug parts. Then, I made my way to the Haze Lab, and as always, quickly went through and grabbed all pieces of the password, before logging into the computer and quickly grabbing the BURG.L chip. I also turned on the scanner in case I needed to use it. It's important to note that I can't use the gas mask as it has no tier. It's technically a tier 0 item. Before leaving, I looted the storage room and finally grabbed the Broodmother BLT recipe. On the way back to BURG.L, I headed into the red ant nest and grabbed another BURG.L chip. This one is really easy to get and unlocks some pretty useful things in the game. Next, I headed home to sleep. Once I'd awoken, I made a smoothie station and a chest. Then I made my way to BURG.L. Gave him the 2 new chips and unlocked the smithing station. This would be essential in order to upgrade my tier 1 tools to make them strong enough to kill the bosses later on. Speaking of upgrading weapons, I decided now would be as good a time as any to grab some quartzite in order to upgrade my arsenal. I then headed back to my base and finished up making workstations by building the smithing station and spinning wheel. Now that the smithing station was up and running, I decided to upgrade my lava blade to tier 4 as it was my primary weapon. I also leveled up all of my tools as this fully repairs them while also buffing them. Next, I built a small wall around my base as this prevents any ants from getting in and stealing my items while also still allowing me easy access. I set my next goal as obtaining the underwater BURG.L chips, and so I began by crafting a pebblet dagger and a gill tube. This would make it so I could breathe longer underwater and fight things with the dagger. While exploring, I found a very strange diving bell spider. This guy had somehow escaped the water. I spoke to pest control and they said we can't be having that, so I had to kill it. We needed diving bell spider chunks for the tier 2 knife, which is one of the items we need later on for one of the BURG.L chips. I also took out another diving bell spider for the second chunk we needed. After realizing I was swimming through the water at the same speed that a weevil runs away from you, I decided it was time to grab an upgrade. So, I killed some water boatmen in order to craft Fynnflops. Fynnflops are a tier 1 piece of armor that allow the player to swim faster in the water. And so, with my gill tube and Fynnflops equipped, I headed for the pond lab. I pulled the lever, activating the breakers, and made light work of the Arcar. I then stole everything from the storage room. Not because I needed it, because I'm just a greedy piece of shit. Next, I activated all 3 of the breakers, being careful not to run out of oxygen. Finally, I had made it inside of the pond lab. I logged into the computer to grant me access to the entire facility and then headed for the chip. I made quick work of the robots that had spawned, but honestly, they're really easy. Who would even die to these anyway? Huh? That's fake. Then I took out the final 2 robots in the last room before grabbing the chip and opening the dome up. I still have no clue what this does, but it looks cool, I guess. Before leaving the underwater area, I maxed out my gamma and headed for the underwater cave. I went and grabbed the mossy key before escaping and using it to unlock the treasure chest, getting the final underwater BURG.L chip. Similar to the tier 2 only challenge, I was unable to use the gas mask due to it being a tier 0 item, so yet again I had to pick up some gastro goo to get into the Haze Lab. However, unlike that challenge, I was able to use brat bursts as they are tier 1. So, I headed for the red anthill to collect some red ant eggs as you need these to craft the brat bursts. On my way out, I saw a ladybug was fighting all of the ants, so I stuck around to watch. The ladybug did lose in the end, but my boy absolutely massacred the ants. I'm not even joking, I genuinely think this guy killed over 100 ants. Rest in peace to the ladybug, he's my hero, man. As I ran past him, I yoinked all his parts because I need them for the Broodmother BLT, and they're kind of just laying there on the ground for free, you know? It means I don't have to kill another ladybug, I can just grab the parts. Anyway, Haze Lab time. I bombed the door to get in, scanned my hands to open the next door, and then headed down. For some reason, both of the TASTs were stuck, so I just got some free raw science and headed deeper. I parkoured through the Room of Death, and then pulled the lever to unlock more of the lab. I then escaped the Room of Death completely untouched and headed to the Room of Death version 2. As always, I trapped the infected ladybug in the hallway so that I could deal with all of the other enemies. I took out all of the infected larvae and mites and opened up the final door. I grabbed the BURG.L chip and the 3 brat bursts and granola bars before heading out. I didn't kill the ladybug as I had no reason to, as I didn't need the truffle tussle mutation or any of the drops. Now that I had some more bombs, I decided to head for the upper yard. I bombed the rock and headed straight to the Termites Nest. I ran past all of the termites as there's so many of them it's just not worth fighting. After a lot of attempts, I managed to squeeze my fat arse through the splinters so that I could go and grab the chip. I didn't bother fighting the Termite King as it wasn't a necessary requirement of the challenge and he doesn't drop anything we can use. I hopped back through the splinters and then saw a wolf spider right in front of me. I was extremely scared. Do I go forward and hope he doesn't see me, or do I run back and face the Termite King? Well, luckily, this wolf spider is actually a reincarnation of Helen Keller. He's completely blind and deaf, as I walked right past him and he didn't even notice me, and I got out of the Termites Nest completely untouched. I upgraded my hammer a couple of times to prepare myself for the assistant manager later on, and then gave BURG.L all of his chips. I was now able to get the advanced production buildings which unlocks the oven that we'll need later on in order to craft the Broodmother summon. I also bought multi-story bases in case we needed to build anything later, as this would make it much easier to do so. On my way to the picnic table, I took out a bombardier and got another boiling gland. I then headed for the exposed pipe where our first rule break takes place, as I had to cut through the soggy roots in order to access the key. We needed this key to obtain one of the BURG.L chips, so this was a necessary rule break sadly. I then bombed the rock which causes the shovel to fall, granting me access to the picnic table. I was attacked by a swarm of bees, but luckily I was able to defend myself from them, only to find I had made a fatal error. You need a tier 2 hammer in order to bust the cooler to get on top of the picnic table. So I had to run around and collect a bunch of resources so that I could build some clover roofs in order to get on top of the picnic table. Now that I'd made it to the top of the picnic table, I ran through the maze and finally grabbed the picnic table BURG.L chip. I now had 2 BURG.L chips remaining and 2 bosses to defeat. I built my way up to the sand pit as it seemed like the easiest way to get into the black anthill, especially because it was nighttime, meaning I wouldn't sizzle on the sand. I headed through the black ant lab using a new trick I had learned in order to save a bomb by doing some very unique parkour. I could have used this in my tier 2 only video, but I didn't know about it then, sadly. This allowed me to grab the healing smoothies and activate the first computer terminal without even using a bomb. I then set my spawn and looted the storage room for more goodies like granola bars. There were also mint shards in here which allowed me to get tier 1 of fresh defense for later on. I bombed the door to the boss room and then headed inside. This boss fight took me a while as my hammer was only tier 1 and thus didn't do much damage at all. But I took it slowly and eventually I managed to finish the assistant manager off and obtain the key card. I then used the key card to grab the final 2 BURG.L chips. This meant our first objective of collecting all of the BURG.L chips was now complete. Now we just had to kill the Broodmother. I took on a stink bug with no gas mask as I needed some stink bug parts to craft a tier 2 hammer. Then I began working on my Mithridatism mutation by killing my first wolf spider. I gave BURG.L his final 2 chips and then upgraded my lava blade to level 5 for good measure. You'll see later on that this upgrade probably actually saved my life. On my way to the upper yard, I took out another bombardier to obtain yet another boiling gland. Then, once I got to the upper yard, I equipped my fresh defense tier 1 and headed into battle. A very warm and painful battle. I used the tier 2 hammer to obtain 4 hot charcoal as I needed this for the oven. This was necessary rule breaker number 2 and I trashed the hammer after using it to get the coal. Before leaving the upper yard, I continued progress on my Mithridatism by killing both of the wolf spiders that spawn underneath the barbecue, taking my count to 3 out of 5. While on my way back home, I took out another wolf spider, followed by another bombardier as we still needed boiling glands. I crafted the oven and then headed into the base of the great oak tree for my final wolf spider kill in order to obtain the Mithridatism mutation. I grabbed my Broodmother BLT from the oven, and now that I was fully equipped, I headed for the boss fight. Once I arrived, I summoned the Broodmother and began the fight. This fight took a long time due to how weak my weapons were, but after about 10 minutes of fighting, I eventually defeated the Broodmother. My lava blade was on extremely low durability, so if I hadn't upgraded it to level 5 earlier, it definitely would have broken during this fight and I would have died. Well, that's it. I've completed yet another challenge in Grounded. This one was definitely a lot harder than the last one. Leave any challenge ideas you have below and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next video and I hope you have a great day.